God sees the truth, but waits. In the town of Vladimir lived a young merchant named Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov. He had 2 shops and a house of his own. Aksionov was a handsome, fair-haired, curly-headed fellow, full of fun and very fond of singing. When quite a young man, he had been given to drink, and was riotous when he had had too much. But after he married, he gave up drinking, except now and then. One summer, Aksionov was preparing to go to the Nizhny Fair, and as he bid goodbye to his family, his wife said, "Ivan Dmitrich, do not start today. I have had a bad dream about you." Aksionov laughed and said, "You are afraid that when I get to the fair I shall go on a spree." His wife replied, "I do not know what I am afraid of. All I know is that I had a bad dream. I dreamt you returned from the town, and when you took off your cap I saw that your hair was quite gray." Aksionov laughed. "That's a lucky sign," he said. "See if I don't sell out all my goods and bring you some presents from the fair." So he said goodbye to his family and drove away. When he had traveled halfway, he met a merchant whom he knew, and they stayed at the same inn for the night. They had some tea together, and then went to bed in adjoining rooms. It was not Aksionov's habit to sleep late, and wishing to travel while it was still cool, he aroused his driver before dawn and told him to put in the horse. He then paid his bill to the landlord and continued his journey. When he had gone about 25 miles, he stopped for the horses to be fed. Aksionov rested a while in the passage of the inn, then stepped out into the porch, and ordering a samovar to be heated, got out his guitar and began to play. Suddenly a troika drove up with tinkling bells, and an official alighted, followed by 2 soldiers. The official approached Aksionov and began questioning him. "Who are you, and where are you from?" Aksionov answered fully and invited the official for some tea, but the official continued to cross-question him. "Where did you spend last night? Were you alone, or with a fellow merchant? Did you see the other merchant this morning? Why did you leave the inn before dawn?" Aksionov, confused by these questions, described everything that had happened. The official then called the soldiers and said, "I am the police officer of this district, and I question you because the merchant with whom you spent last night has been found with his throat cut. We must search your things." The soldiers unstrapped Aksionov's luggage and searched it. Suddenly, the officer drew a knife out of a bag, crying, "Whose knife is this?" Aksionov looked and saw a blood-stained knife taken from his bag. He was frightened. "How is it there is blood on this knife?" demanded the officer. Aksionov tried to answer, but could hardly utter a word. "I don't know, not mine." The officer then declared, "This morning the merchant was found in bed with his throat cut. You are the only person who could have done it. The house was locked from inside, and no one else was there. Here is this blood-stained knife in your bag, and your face and manner betray you. Tell me how you killed him, and how much money you stole." Aksionov swore he had not done it, and had no money except his own. But his voice was broken, his face pale, and he trembled with fear as though guilty. The police officer ordered the soldiers to bind Aksionov and put him in the cart. As they tied his feet and flung him into the cart, Aksionov crossed himself and wept. His money and goods were taken from him, and he was sent to the nearest town and imprisoned there. Inquiries as to his character were made in Vladimir. The merchants and other inhabitants of that town said that in former days he used to drink and waste his time, but that he was a good man. Then the trial came on. He was charged with murdering a merchant from Ryazan and robbing him of 20,000 rubles. His wife, in despair, went to the town where her husband was in jail. She took their children with her, but initially she was not allowed to see him. After much begging, she obtained permission and was taken to him. When she saw her husband in prison dress and in chains, shut up with thieves and criminals, she fell down and did not come to her senses for a long time. Then she drew her children to her and sat down near him. She told him about home and asked what had happened. "We must petition the Tsar not to let an innocent man perish," Aksionov said. His wife told him that she had sent a petition to the Tsar, but it had not been accepted. Aksionov did not reply but only looked downcast. Then his wife said, "It was not for nothing I dreamt your hair had turned gray. You remember? You should not have started that day." And passing her fingers through his hair, she asked, "Vanya, dearest, tell your wife the truth. Was it not you who did it?" "So you too suspect me," said Aksionov, and hiding his face in his hands, he began to weep. Then a soldier came to say that the wife and children must go away, and Aksionov said goodbye to his family for the last time. When they were gone, Aksionov recalled what had been said. He thought to himself, "It seems that only God can know the truth. It is to him alone we must appeal, and from him alone expect mercy." Aksionov was condemned to be flogged and sent to the mines. After the flogging, he was driven to Siberia with other convicts. For 26 years, Aksionov lived as a convict in Siberia. His hair turned white as snow, and his beard grew long, thin, and gray. He became stooped, walked slowly, spoke little, and never laughed, but he often prayed. In prison, Aksionov learned to make boots, earning a little money. He bought The Lives of the Saints and read it when there was enough light. On Sundays, he read the lessons and sang in the prison church choir. The prison authorities liked Aksionov for his meekness, and his fellow prisoners respected him, calling him grandfather and the saint. One day, a fresh gang of convicts arrived. Among them was a tall, strong man of 60, with a closely cropped gray beard, named Makar Semyonik. Aksionov listened as Makar told the others he had been arrested for stealing a horse. Makar mentioned he was from Vladimir. Aksionov raised his head and asked, "Do you know anything of the merchants Aksionov of Vladimir? Are they still alive?" Makar replied, "Know them? Of course I do. The Aksionovs are rich, though their father is in Siberia, a sinner like ourselves, it seems. As for you, Granddad, how did you come here?" Aksionov did not like to speak of his misfortune. He only sighed and said, "For my sins, I have been in prison these 26 years." Makar Semyonik laughed and said, "It must have been him in whose bag the knife was found. How could anyone put a knife into your bag while it was under your head? It would surely have woken you up." Aksionov felt sure this was the man who had killed the merchant. That night, as he was walking about the prison, he noticed some earth rolling out from under a shelf. Suddenly, Makar Semyonik crept out from under the shelf and seized Aksionov's hand, confessing he had dug a hole under the wall. "Just keep quiet, old man, and you shall get out too. If you blab, they'll flog the life out of me, but I will kill you first," Makar warned. Aksionov trembled with anger and said, "I have no wish to escape, and you have no need to kill me. You killed me long ago. As to telling on you, I may do so or not, as God shall direct." Next day, the tunnel was discovered, and the governor questioned the prisoners. Aksionov was asked to tell the truth, but he said, "I cannot say, Your Honor. It is not God's will that I should tell. Do what you like with me. I am in your hands." That night, Makar came to Aksionov, begging for forgiveness and confessing he was the real murderer. "Ivan Dmitrich, forgive me. I will confess, and you will be released." Aksionov was silent, then said, "It is easy for you to talk, but I have suffered for you these 26 years. Where could I go now? My wife is dead, and my children have forgotten me. I have nowhere to go." Makar continued to plead, and Aksionov finally said, "God will forgive you. Maybe I am 100 times worse than you." Makar Semyonik confessed his guilt, but when the order for Aksionov's release came, Aksionov was already dead. This adaptation is based on a short story by Leo Tolstoy. If you enjoyed this story, Please consider subscribing to the channel for more updates and stories like this.